This is John Lauder, host of The Cheap Seats. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Hello, welcome, and thank you for joining the Confessions of a Military Spouse podcast. I am your host, Jenna Burt. I'm a military spouse of 10 years, a dental assistant, and a certified phlebotomist. I am so thankful that you are here with me today, and as you know, I appreciate any and all feedback, so if you would like to leave me some feedback, please feel free to find me on Instagram at Confessions of a Mil Spouse, on Facebook at Confessions of a Military Spouse. You can email me at confessionsofamilspouse@gmail.com, or you can find me on publichousemedia.org. I am super excited for today's podcast episode because I have a very special guest with us. I have Colleen Markey with Magical Order of Brave Knights. So without further ado, welcome and thank you for being here with me, Colleen.
Thank you so much for having me. This is a great experience.
Yes. So I am super excited to bring Colleen to all of my listeners. I have read about her company. I've researched about it. I've been in her shoes. And I know that many of our listeners will be able to relate to and understand the purpose behind her company. So with all of that being said, let's go ahead and jump in. So Colleen, I want you to introduce yourself and tell everybody a little bit about your company, how you got started, why you got started, and then we can go from there.
Okay. So I created a product for children with separation anxiety and sleep issues. So I also am a military spouse. My husband is now retired, but when I created the company, he was in the Army, and I came up with this idea not out of a business. In the beginning, it was just to help our youngest son who was struggling with separation anxiety that began during one of my husband's deployments. In fact, actually, when I look back at it, I really think my husband was deployed when he was only 4 months old. And I think that kind of started it off, where he was so attached just to me from the beginning. And then during his second deployment, my son was a little bit older and aware of separation anxiety and things changing and missing daddy. And that was it was wreaking havoc on his sleep and my sleep. So for any of the military spouses out there, know the only thing that if you ask them, what do you need during deployment? It's just that little bit of time by yourself at night to rest and recover and let your body kind of reset, your brain reset to get ready for the next day. And we have 3 boys. So when my youngest was constantly waking me up night after night after night with nightmares and fears, I knew I needed to do something. And I was kind of failing him. You know, I was trying I'm going to put a sticker chart up for you. And if you're a big boy and you're brave all night, you get a sticker. But that wasn't really addressing the fear component, because you can't just tell a 3-year-old to be brave and work through something that feels so real to him. So I have a master's and a bachelor's in psychology. And I finally was like, I really need to address this. I was kind of just putting my head down and getting through like we do. And
yes, absolutely.
yeah, you just make do. You do the best you can, and you just look day to day. And finally I was like, I need to stop dealing with this day to day. I need to solve this problem for him, because I was starting to see his anxiety leave just nighttime, and those what if questions that would come up when the sun would go down began to happen during the day, when we would be bringing him to preschool or going to the doctor's office or the dentist or anything. And I thought, this anxiety is spilling outside of just nightmares and becoming now, he's losing his confidence. And so I said, okay, I got to look at this cycle of anxiety and see how we can fix it. And so that's kind of how I came up with my product.
And I mean, it gives me goosebumps to hear you talk about it, because it's so true. When one parent is gone, and I only have one daughter, but I know people with multiple kids, can deal with this on multiple different levels as far as, their level of anxiety and the things that they're afraid of. And I love that you hit the point of, I need to stop doing it day to day because you have the knowledge that you can dig a little further deeper. But also acknowledging the fact that it was affecting things outside of the home and outside of nighttime, because I think that is one thing that happens a lot, especially in military families, is it starts off small, but then it can continue to get bigger because it just keeps building and building and building. And it's something that's not, particularly talked about, because I think that we as military spouses always just feel like, well, everybody else is dealing with it too. So, why talk about it?
Right. And that's it. And like my husband, would call and say, okay, bud, got to be brave. And those things that we were trying, weren't working. But like I said, we were just doing, it's like when you're in that moment, it's kind of that survival mode. And I was like, okay, wait a minute, we're surviving, we're fine, but we're not thriving. And I need to change that for him. Right. And so finally we sat down. And so in cognitive behavior therapy, we kind of talk with kids like, okay, what does it look like to you? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? And that's basically so that we're, as a parent, sometimes we just want to gloss over, like, you're fine. You're safe. We're in a safe house and, you're safe. But I finally was like, you know what? I needed to sit down. And even though he was so young, I needed to listen. And that's, I think, one of the biggest things that we gloss over sometimes when we're so busy, whether it's because we've moved and we're trying to set up a new life and home and, existence, or because of deployment and we're just trying to fill the hole of our spouse being gone, or it's just because of life and our kids have kind of, that we'll talk about that cycle of anxiety so the cycle of anxiety is like, they get a worried thought, like a what if this happens? What if that happens? And those worried thoughts can sometimes just get spinning up a little bit. And then our brain is like reacts and we start to have a physical symptom from that, right? So the stress hormones start happening. And the physical symptom could be something of dry mouth, where you hear, can I have another glass of water? And it's not just a stalling technique. It really is a physical response that they're having, a headache, a tummy ache. They're kind of going into fight or flight because that what if is seeming to be scarier as our body's reacting to it. And then they have a behavior change. And that behavior change can be coming into your room at night, or avoidance or tantrum, not wanting to go to school, clinging to you when you go to drop off or something like that. And so, and then that creates another what if, right? And so it just kind of keeps going. So I thought, I got to slow this cycle down. Anxiety is not something that there's like a cure for, if you want to say, but there's ways to control it, and there's ways to manage it, and there's ways to overcome it. And so that's really what I did by listening to him, is I had to figure out a way for him to be in control of that cycle and slow it down and manage it.
Absolutely. And I think it's important that you hit the point of the whole what if, because I know as an adult myself, I've had anxiety, and it is a terrible, terrible thing to experience, because exactly what you said, you get the what if, and then that triggers a response, and then you start to get the physical symptoms, and it is almost like this domino effect.
Yeah.
And it just, like you said, there's no cure for it.
Right.
There's only management for it. And I can't imagine being a young child and feeling those things, because I would venture out to say that as a young child, when all of this happens, they don't really understand what's happening either.
Right. No. And when you're in the middle of having that anxiety, even an adult, it's hard. You can say, okay, I realize I'm stressing over this, but it's hard to stop. And so for every night, what was happening for me is we have, like I said, 3 boys. One of our boys has autism. So there was a struggle of like trying for me to just be able to deal with our normal day-to-day struggles. And I was like, I need to sleep. But I started to get anxiety because every night that he would stress, I was starting to take it on and feel it. And I know we do that a lot as parents, where his anxiety became mine, because I was like, here we go again. What if he doesn't sleep? I have a big meeting tomorrow. I've got to do this. What am I going to do? And so that's the hard part. Kids can't they don't understand. My son was just so fearful every night. And I mean, the sun would go down, we'd be having dinner, and just the mere mention of, okay, it's time to get your jammies on and brush your teeth, he would just, I could see his little eyes fill with fear. And it was so hard to see him struggle and be like legitimately afraid inside his room, inside our home, and it was like,
Right.
if that is not your safe place, how? And I was so impressed by him being able to manage it during the day, but at night it started to get away. And then, like I said, started to happen during the day. And so really our product that I came up with was a way to stop it and a way to give those worries up to somebody else, because he in his little itty bitty body was carrying those worries around and it was such a burden. And so this was a way for him to have me validate what he was worrying about rather than just say, oh, honey, dinosaurs are not coming in your room tonight.
Right. Absolutely. And
because
like you said,
go ahead.
that's
Sorry.
a lot for his little body to have to take on.
Yeah. And it was a rational fear of a dinosaur coming in. But to him, when I asked, what does it look like and sound like? I mean, he was terrified. And I was so impressed by him, managing it to only come down to my room at, if he went to bed at 7, to come down to my room at midnight or 1. And I was like, well, for the longest time, he was really struggling with that. Right. And we don't always know what they're going through when you put them to bed. They wake up and then the fear just kind of takes over. So our product is really for that, for them to identify what's bothering them, what's worrying them, which is so helpful because sometimes kids, especially if you have a child who isn't as verbal about sharing, right, or identifying it. Our product, Sir William, the Brave Knight, is great because as a parent, you get to listen and say, gosh, what's worrying you? And today, with the pandemic and all of these changes in our life with school, this is a great way for them to be able to they always say better out than in, right? Get those worries out and say them. And once you put them to light and you say them, they're not as big and they're not as scary. And someone can listen and say, gosh, that must be really hard for you to worry about that. Yeah, I worry about that too, but here's how I think about it. So it just opens up a dialogue and gets the kids to identify their fears and then learn to address them and then ultimately overcome them and conquer them.
Absolutely. And I think it's, excuse me, I think it's important too that you realize what's going on in the world and all of the changes. And, I can say personally for myself, for probably the last 2 weeks, I've done nothing but stress about, okay, if they go back to school, what is school going to look like? Is there going to be after school since my husband and I both work? Okay, now they're doing virtual learning for a month and then they're supposed to go in person. So I can only imagine as a child feeling those types of feelings too, because it doesn't only affect us as parents, it affects them as kids. They don't get to see their friends. What used to be normal is not. Now they have to wear masks to school every day. That's a lot for them to take on.
It is. And it is such an unprecedented world. We don't know what this is going to look like for them years down the line. We don't know, when they're in school, those peer relationships of building a friendship and learning how to be a good friend and learning how to help someone, isn't happening. So we call Sir William your new forever friend because sometimes that's like what you need is just one buddy to help you get through something. And you learn then, okay, I learned how to overcome this. I'm going to help someone overcome that. And so those things are, they're missing more than just that. And, in the last 2 weeks, I've been the same thing as you where I've received no less than 3 emails. My boys go to different schools, they're different ages. And so 3 emails from each school because they just keep changing. And so it's one of those things where it's challenging as an adult. It's really challenging as a child. And so school anxiety is going to be a big one. And the other aspect of that is when they do eventually go back to school, they've been home with us for months that they've never had to do. So you're going to all of a sudden have to reintroduce them to, okay, well, this is what should happen. You should be in school. So that's a whole nother issue. So yeah, my goodness, there has never been a time in our life where anxiety and stress has been this high. And because of uncertainty and those what if questions are happening to all of us, like all day.
Absolutely. I know when I reached out to Colleen, I told her, I said, I might need a Sir William myself because it's just crazy.
It is.
So let's dive in a little bit more about Sir William and
Okay.
how he helps these kids overcome these what ifs and these fears and this anxiety and all of that.
Okay, so he is a sweet and just a lovable teddy bear. He's 12 inches tall. He's a pretty good sized little guy, but he's dressed in a medieval knight, sweet little uniform. So he's brave and strong. And it comes with a storybook that tells the tales of the brave knights, of where they come from, the Valley of Knights, and how they help children overcome their fears by addressing them. And it comes with a sweet wish. So instead of it, night, night, sleep tight, it's now brave night, sleep tight, tuck me in and hold me tight. And so the idea of every night the parent can read the book to the children. They can tell Sir William what's worrying them, and they can give that burden up and worries up to Sir William, and he stays on guard with them while they sleep. So they don't have to hold that burden alone, but they're able to really kind of unleash that, address it, and identify it. And then one of the sweetest parts, I think, and most magical parts about our product is it comes with a projecting flashlight. And this, for the military spouses out there, will laugh because this was my husband's addition. We had been using Sir William while he was gone. When he came home, he was like, we need something to clear the room. So it's a projecting flashlight. It comes either pink or blue, and it projects, it has a wheel, and it projects up to 8 images of Sir William and the Brave Knights. And the kids can use it to shine it under their bed or in their closet, anywhere that something would scare them. And once Sir William's light has shined there, it's clear and nothing bad can come in. So their room is marked kind of clear and safe. They've given up their worries. They've said their wish, and they can sleep while he stays on guard to protect them.
I just love everything about that. I am sitting here thinking about my husband's last deployment, and I remember being so tired.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
not just, obviously because he was gone, I had my daughter, I was working,
Right.
but also because I remember her getting up like clockwork almost every single night.
Yep.
And just the exhaustion. And she's not a good bed partner. I hate to say it, but she's
Right.
not.
Right.
She's not
Right.
a good bed partner. So, she would wake up, come in, we would sleep for a little bit, and then she'd be kicking me. So then I'd have to take her to her room. And
Right.
then, I'm getting up early to do stuff and stay up late.
Right.
And just think about that and how I wish I would have had something, because I know there was stuff going on within her that was really bothering her. But,
Sure.
without having a lot of knowledge, I didn't know how to approach that and really get that out of her. So thinking back, I think about how I would have loved to have had something like this to be able to open up that conversation and give those worries and anxieties to, someone else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it is like, our kids, if some people enjoy having a family bed where their kids are not, or who are better bed mates, like you were saying, my son was the same thing. He was not. And that's like a choice for people. But if it's because of fear that's bringing him in there, then that's a different story. And the bigger problem for me was there was going to be an adjustment period when my husband came home, and that was going to make that transition, which can be challenging, which people don't really understand when people outside of the military are like, he's back, you must be so excited. And obviously we are, but there's still that transition of like, it's like a double Dutch routine where you have to jump back in and try to fit, where you had filled that void and now it's back. And so that was going to create a problem if he was waking up multiple times a night, because my husband, had to get up and still do a job, as did I, but it's a little bit different when he was being sleep deprived, trying to, reintegrate into the family life and routine. So that creates a little bit of a problem. And like, for us with the constant moves, new home, new friends, new family, new everything, new experiences, all of a sudden it's like, that can create some doubt and anxiety. So there's always an opportunity to open up that dialogue with kids. And that's what we hope. We created a little thing at the end of the book too that's sweet. That's a knighting ceremony. So it personalizes it. So the parents can gather the child with Sir William, and the Sir William pledges to kind of love and protect the little prince or princess. And so it's kind of sweet way of bonding them, and they feel that connection. So whether it's going to get medical appointments or a dental procedure, our youngest son actually also has chronic medical problems. So Sir William accompanied us to any procedure he needed to have, if he'd go to surgery, if he was at an appointment, if he needed to get a shot. It was a great way to kind of have him along for a new adjustment.
And I love everything about that. And I love that you talked about moving because we just actually PCS back in December, which seems like just yesterday, but I'm like, oh my gosh, it's already been almost 8 months. Like what? But I know when we moved, even again, myself as an adult, coming to a new place, living in a new house, I don't think I slept a wink that first night because I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know anything about this neighborhood. Like anybody could like creep in my windows. Anybody could, come raid our house. And I think those are things that we forget about until it actually happens.
Right.
And I think it's also something that most, I don't want to say normal, but normal people don't really have to think about because they're not moving every 3 years.
Right.
And then I think about our military families that end up having to PCS overseas. Like that's a whole different type of anxiety and worry. And so I
disconnection from like, you know what I mean? That's an enormous,
Yeah. And so I think that's a very valid point, that Sir William can be very beneficial in PCS deployment. And like you said, just uncertain times like right now. I mean, I don't think I know anybody that's ever gone through something in the world as crazy as we are right now.
No. Yeah. It's a lot for all of us. It's a lot as a parent with that burden of what's this going to look like for my children. It's a lot for the children, and it's a lot, for military families right now where things just change every day. And it's, in a life that's filled with transition more than average family, then when you add this into it, you're like, oh, sure, we'll just throw another ball in. We'll just keep juggling. We got it. So,
yeah, exactly. Just throw it in, see what comes out.
Right.
And the other thing that I was thinking about, which kind of ties into PCSing and COVID and everything, that Sir William would be wonderful for is when kids have to start new schools. Obviously we PCSed in December. So my daughter maybe got a solid 2 months at her new school before COVID hit.
That's hard.
So now if and when they go back to school, she's going to be in a whole new grade with all new people that she already didn't know.
Right.
It's all those little things that to us as parents, I feel like are probably minute and minuscule and aren't really that big of a deal, but to kids are probably really huge.
Yeah. So what we would do is we would tuck Sir William in his backpack and bring him to preschool. And in preschool, they'd let him sit in the cubby. But when he was older, when we started to kind of test this out and give it to friends and stuff, they would just keep him tucked in the backpack. And they would come over and tell Sir William, hey, I'm going to go out to recess now, or I'll be back. And then it was just a fun thing. It was almost like they knew they had some backup, right? They had someone there to be with them. And it's just one of those things where you just don't feel alone. Tuck them in the backpack and let them come. And that was a sweet way for school, because there's nothing worse than leaving your child at school when you have to go to work or you're going to do whatever, and your child's going to be there for 6 or 7 hours with a pit in their stomach, and you're worrying about it as you're trying to focus on your job, and you're like, I hope my child's okay today. I hope they don't have fear. I hope they can overcome this. I hope so-and-so's nice to them. I hope they, you know what I mean? It's hard to separate that as a mother, I think, when your child's struggling with something. So to know that you've given them a little piece of backup can kind of give you some peace of mind too, while they're overcoming those obstacles.
Yeah. And I think one of the biggest things that you touched on was them feeling like they're not alone.
Yeah.
Because I've talked about it before in my podcast. And as a military spouse, I feel like it is really easy to feel like you're alone in this life.
Yeah.
Kids are obviously a little bit more resilient, and they have, I guess, a little bit more flexibility,
Sure.
and they're able to make friends quicker. But still, coming into a brand new school where kids already have their established friends because they've been with them since kindergarten. And then all of a sudden now you come in. And then I think, especially as kids get older, and you're moving and PCSing and all of these things, like, I feel like the feeling of being alone is there for them
Hmm. Yeah.
because they
Yeah.
don't have that establishment.
Yeah. And that right now is even harder because we are so isolated. And then when they go back, if they go back, however it looks, whenever it happens, and then they feel alone, even though they're around other people, it's really hard because this, I know they've switched from calling it social distancing to physical distancing to try to help everybody wrap their brain around. We do need connections. And so I think that's why we call them, the new forever friend, because it's just, there's a lot of research out there too that talks about having a security object and a lovey to kind of learn how to have your first friendship and your first connection, and how that builds the framework for how you can then make friends with another person, and how you learn how to experience things and go through things that way. And so it's almost that, for young children, it's almost the first connection they have outside of their parents and siblings, because a 3-year-old, 2 and 3-year-old aren't having play dates or anything. I mean, pre-COVID, obviously, but that is the first way they learn how to interact with other people. And so it really does build that framework and lay the foundation. So when they are switching schools, or my goodness, in the situation like your daughter, where she comes in and then 2 months later, everything shuts down, where they still can learn how to interact with other children, especially if it's only via a computer screen. It has been such a challenging year. And that is something that everybody just needs to take a minute and go, we're doing okay. Like, this has been just overwhelming anxiety for everybody. And I see it like with my own mother, who's home, just with like in a house on our property, but she struggles with anxiety. And my brother was in the Army as well, and he passed away sadly while serving, and her anxiety because of that shook. And so then I see my children watching her with the anxiety and struggling with it. And so, we learn this behavior from other people around us and from our life situation. And so having some skills to work through it and help, I think, is just a benefit to everybody right now with everything we've got going on, and especially for military families who have just that extra layer of stress.
That extra goodness, right?
Yes. And it's just like you said, our children are probably more resilient than any other children because of what they go through. And they're so, they really are so strong at being able to handle these transitions. And they are it's amazing when you look at what they do and how they thrive. And so I just think, I'm always just so impressed when I see a mama out there setting up a new home, doing something. You're like, you go, girl, you got it. This is good.
Right. Yeah.
And you're like, yeah. So we do donate. We donate to a portion of all of our proceeds. We donate to the Stephen Siller Tunnel to Towers Foundation, because it's a charity that's very near and dear to our heart, because of my brother passing away. And my husband was at 9/11 with the military. And so for us to be able to help a family who's at their worst moment in their life, to be able to help them keep their home or update their home if their spouse has been catastrophically injured, to help them function and manage a little bit easier in the home. We donate to them just because it feels like we're able to help out a family when they need it the most.
And I think that is wonderful and so kind and generous and just amazing, because there's a lot of uncertainty in the world and a lot of people that truly need help. And to know that you're not only helping families with young children, but you're also helping these other families as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and there's a few other fun things, when we decided to bring this as a product to help other children, I did a ton of research and realized that, this was something that I wanted to try to be able to bring to other families. I knew we needed some sweet touches that made it so people realized that we were a small business and that we really cared. We weren't some big toy company cranking out toys. So we send a sweet little free gift to the children, and it's addressed in the mail to the little prince or princess about a week to 10 days after they receive their Sir William. And it comes to them from the castle. And it's it's a little booklet, and it's got some fun tips about where Sir William grew up and the fun games he used to play when he was a little cub and about his training. And it's got just some neat little illustrations that aren't in the book. And kids really love getting something in mail, especially if they have just moved. To have something addressed to them and receive it in the mail is huge. That's always a fun thing. And then we send a birthday card from the castle as well. It's a really sweet little photo of our castle all decorated with birthday balloons and bunting. And it's addressed again to the little prince or princess. So they get that during the month of their birth, so that they get another fun thing throughout the year from us.
Oh, yes. I know my daughter loves to get mail every day.
Yeah.
Mom, is there something in there for me? And I'm like, no, I mean, sorry. So I love that little touch. And one of the things that really attracted me to your company was the fact that you guys are not a big producing company.
Right.
You're small and you want to keep it that way. And like you said,
Right.
you're not just pumping out thousands of these things, day in and day out for big companies and big movement. You
Right.
like to keep it small so you can have those small touches.
Right.
Because like you said, kids love to get mail. I don't know what it is. Like me as
They
an
just
adult
do.
now, I'm like, oh,
I know.
mail.
I know. Mail is like one of my least favorite things, but my kids, my goodness, they light up. And so now, especially when they're not having any other, interaction with other people, it's a really extra fun little thing. And to have it addressed to little prince or princess, it's fun. And we did receive, so 2020 has been such a hard year for all of us, right? In our entire world. But we did receive a really amazing honor in 2020, which is even more special because it's this year of all years. But we received the 2020 Product of the Year from Creative Child Magazine for fear and anxiety. So it's pretty amazing. They kind of have a panel of families that looks at this and experts, and it's been a really great honor for us to be able to receive that, to be recognized as a great tool for kids to reduce fear, reduce anxiety, and build self-confidence. Because once they learn to overcome one thing, that pathway is set and they know how to overcome the next stumbling block or obstacle that comes their way.
Absolutely. And I love that it is research based,
Mm-hmm.
You have a background in it, you understand it. I am one of those people where I like things, but I need to understand them.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
I need to understand the why. I need to understand, the science behind it, which is making today's times really hard.
Because it changes, right? And there's so many
Yeah.
different, yeah.
Yes. But like I said, I love that you have a background in this. You understand the depth behind it, and it's not just you're not just masking a problem. You're really diving in and helping, like you said, the child overcome that problem to then give them the confidence to overcome other problems as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've had some great stories of families that will kind of reach back out to us and send us a funny email of one daughter. This little girl's she was like 5 or 6, and the mom sent me an email and said, so she's been sleeping through the night. She's so confident now. I've seen her, this is pre-COVID, and she's like, I've seen her changes. She's off to school. And she said, but now she's asking Sir William, I heard her in her room ask Sir William, hey, since you've done a good job keeping all the scary things out and no more nightmares come in, can you do some cleaning while I'm asleep? Could you clean up my room for me? And the mom was like, well, she is a boss. I like it. She's like, hey, you've done your job, but now you're kind of just hanging out. So maybe you could.
Right. Time to pick it up. Okay. You got to earn your keep now.
Yeah. Okay. Good job. That task is done. Let's get on to something else. Isn't that funny? It's one of my favorite stories.
Hilarious. That totally sounds like something my daughter would do too. Be like, listen, I thank you for everything you've done, but now you're just kind of hanging out and I'm going to need you to do some more.
Yeah. Isn't that cute? And the mom was dying laughing. It was one of my favorites. Such a sweet, sweet story. So yeah.
Well, and it's always good to hear those types of things,
Right.
know, because then you get to see it come full circle, which
Right.
I think is probably one of the most rewarding things for you.
It is. And especially with, we've had a ton of great feedback from families with children with special needs. Like I said, our oldest son is on the autism spectrum. And so to hear other families, because, I've lived that as well. And so to be able to hear other families, especially if children are not as verbal, they still are able to hear, listen into what Sir William can do and have that safety. Sleep is a real problem a lot of times for children with special needs, and that increases the avoidance of bedtime, which creates just such a hassle. I mean, for any parent, when you're trying to get your child into bed and you feel like that routine becomes longer and longer, and one book's becoming 12 books and more drinks of water, and you're like, how do I extricate myself from this?
Yes.
I'm going to lay down for 1 minute, and that, you know what I mean? So these boundaries that can be established with this can be really helpful for people who are struggling with keeping that routine to a manageable size, because, like you said, once your child goes down, you just have time finally to get the stuff done that you couldn't pay attention to while they were awake. So those times for parents are crucial to be able to keep that to a manageable number of minutes. Yes. Where the bedtime routine is happening. And that's something else that it does, is it creates some framework there.
Yes. And I think it's important that listeners know, that you've been through it all, and it's not something you just created based on science and knowledge and things like that. Like, it's a personal experience from you too. And I think that for me personally, that carries a lot of weight, because I'm like, okay, she has tried it. It actually works. It's not just a product she's putting out there because she thinks it works, because it should work because of, it's proven to work. And, not just one specific kid, a multitude of kids with different, anxiety issues and fears and things like that.
Yeah. And it is. I mean, I have lived every single moment of this. Yeah. It took me a really long time to finally be ready to bring it to market. I did so much research on it and everything because I wanted it to be as helpful as it could be. And I didn't, like I said, I didn't just come up with this, like, hey, here's a good idea, I want to go into business. This was like a huge leap for me to be able to bring it. So I knew that I needed to not only make it authentic to everybody, but have the research to back it up. And while that was happening, I was still raising my boys and living these struggles. And our middle son actually had a weird experience. He went to camp. He was fine, never had any separation anxiety, went to camp one year, and he just had a little fleeting worry, and that grew and grew. And so that was another thing where he was about 8 or 9 years old. And that was something that we had to then all of a sudden go, okay. And so we utilized Sir William again for him, where he had only had one earlier just because his little brother had one and he wanted it. And thought it was fun.
Of course.
But then all of a sudden it was like, we were going back to going, okay, we have to stop that cycle, and we have to learn to take a breath and look at what it is. And that's kind of our mission, is that, our mission statement has always been teaching children how to overcome whatever is in front of them, and learn that they are in control of that fear. They can allow it to become bigger than them and overshadow everything and cripple them, or they can keep it smaller and manageable and kind of tuck it away and address it and go, hey, I feel you, I see you, and you're not going to take a hold of me today because I'm going to overcome this. And to see him at that age be able to do it, it was amazing. And that was kind of the impetus of like, okay, children struggle with this, not just at nighttime, but just general anxiety throughout their life, and learning how to manage it. Because a lot of times children will have something like that, whether it's at camp or a PCS, a move, or a family member losing a family member, or like a divorce where there's just a large transition, and you'll start to see that anxiety come up, and it can lead to kind of almost like an OCD behavior where children will want to keep things in a routine to try to manage them. And while it's not completely obsessive compulsive, but it is just a way to try to manage. So for them to learn how to manage without having to have such rigid guidelines, it helps. It's a real benefit for children.
Absolutely. So if someone listening, which I'm sure there will be multiple people, but if someone listening wants to purchase Sir William for their son or daughter, what do they need to do?
So we have our product on our website. So it's www.magicalorderofbravenights.com. So Magical Order of Brave Knights. And for now, because everything is so overwhelming and crazy, and it's going to run a little fun sale right now, where our product comes with a bear, the book, and the projecting flashlight. But on our website, we are also offering a free gift of a plush, very soft blanket, either a pink or a blue blanket, which has Sir William's image on it. They can receive that as a free gift as well. It's a really large, super, super soft blanket. Or a nightlight with Sir William's image on it, where he's kind of has his hand out like, stop, don't come in here to anything scary. And it's a really soft orange kind of glow, which helps. They're really not supposed to have a ton of light in their room, but orange is the one light that helps the circadian rhythm. So those two are free gifts that they can get on our website. So they would receive the kit along with a free gift. And we have a fun wheel where you can spin and get a discount, but I'll also provide your listeners with a 15% discount for military families. If they spun the wheel and didn't get a high enough discount they wanted, there's always a 15% discount for any military family. And the code is Sir William, all capital. And then we have our product also on Amazon, but without a free gift.
So they definitely need to go to the website and order, because I've checked out the free gifts and they're awesome.
They are good. And the other thing that's great about on our website is there's that's where they can receive the little booklet in the mail addressed to their children and the birthday card. So those are only available if you purchase through our website. So yeah. And, like I said, a portion of all the proceeds go to Stephen Stiller, and we just really want to support other military families. So that's why we have the discount code. But there is a fun little thing. You can even receive a higher discount if you spin the wheel, which I love those. You can get another free gift with like a little cinch sack going to grandma's, or a little door protection sign. So right now, with everything going kind of wrong in our world or crazy in our world,
right?
we want to have a little... We just want to have a little fun. So we're offering some fun free stuff to kind of uplift and, have a fun package come in the mail to children. So yeah, if they're overseas, it's probably better to order through Amazon. But for domestic, our website has the fun extra stuff in it. So yeah.
Perfect. I think that is so amazing and so wonderful. And I'm so happy that I was able to have you on my show and talk about this with all of our, military and non-military members, because I know obviously military families tend to face these, I guess, more often, but non-military families face this as well. So I love that we're able to get this out to the listeners and show them this amazing product to help desperate parents who need sleep to get them to sleep.
Thank you.
So is there anything else that you would want our listeners to know about your product, or yourself, or anything in general?
I think that's it. Just know that we stand behind it. So, we're, like I said, we're not a huge company. It's just my husband and I. So if you ever have any problems, reach out to us. I respond to emails really quickly, or find us on Instagram or Facebook and follow us. I put some sweet little tips about how to help and manage anxiety and things come up. So, find Magical Order of Brave Knights on Facebook or Instagram, and follow us and reach out and post some cute pictures. You could tag us and put some sweet pictures of your child with Sir William. And there's a blog on our website as well with just timely, right? So we're starting in back to school stuff coming up here, but I write from the heart about, stuff that I think affects us all.
Yes, and I can vouch for the fact that she is super, super timely with her responses to emails and messages. If anybody has ever reached out to me, that's not necessarily the case with me myself, but Colleen is on it. So I would highly suggest, if you do have any questions or, want to give feedback, reach out to her, because very, very timely.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's a little bit easier, I guess, right now because, things are, I'm home, but right. But I do make it a point because, like I said, this is something that's important, because I know if someone's reaching out about their child stressing and struggling, that if they've gotten to the point where they're ready to find some help for it, that they really are needing some help. And that's kind of where I feel with this. It's a little bit, it's just, I've been there. You're in a fragile state, you're worrying about something and you're looking for some help. And so this isn't a one-off, like, hey, we sold your product and, see ya. I've had people email back and say, okay, so, and I put some instructions in the book, in the book, and then as well in the package about what's the best way to introduce Sir William and how to go through it. But feel free to email me and I will send you out some more stuff. I mean, this is important to be able to help your child overcome some stress and have everybody sleep. Right now, the single biggest thing we need to do to keep ourselves healthy is get some sleep, wash our hands and socially distance, but also make sure that you're keeping your immune system up by getting some good sleep for your whole family.
Absolutely. And as a parent myself, I think it's super important that you do offer that, direct feedback and direct contact. And, you make an appointment, or you make it a point to interact with your customers and answer any questions they have, because like you said, they're coming to you at a really fragile time, and right. To know that they have that resource available, for me, that's awesome, because I can't tell you how many times I bought a product and, I've heard, oh, we'll be there for you. Any questions, let us know. And then I reach out and no response.
Right. No, like that to me. And that's where a lot of this comes from. It's because, I'm a consumer as well. And so I'm the same thing where I'm like, that's really frustrating. Like, so we really stand behind everything. And if anybody needs a replacement of anything, or our job here is to help children, and that's our mission. And so we are, always kind of there to try to help as much as possible.
Well, thank you so much, Colleen, for joining me today and talking about this amazing product and letting our listeners know. I loved having you on my show, and I cannot wait to hear success stories from our listeners.
Thank you so much for having me. Me too.
And I will follow up with you so, I can hear these success stories from the parents that have been able to purchase this product and, give you that feedback that we all want.
That'd be great. Thank you so much. That's amazing. That'd be great.
Yeah. Thank you again for joining me, and we will chat soon.
Okay. Sounds good.